So hey everybody, thanks for joining the Huddle, HCDC supportive growth channel for entrepreneurs. Really excited about today's session. We've got Scott Ryan, the Executive Director of the Ohio Third Frontier, and Ian Smith, who's a Senior Project Manager with here locally in Cincinnati with REDI. And they're gonna share their insights and knowledge of a lot of public and governmental resources that exist for entrepreneurs. We're going to start with Scott and spend about 15, 20, 25 minutes on things that the Ohio Third Frontier has to offer that you definitely want to know about. And then we'll take some questions, want to make it conversational, and then we'll shift over to Ian and have Ian spend the second half of the session sharing most specifically the inclusion grant that they offer. I guess Scott, Ian, you want to provide a quick intro and then we'll turn things over to Scott?
Sure, thanks, Paul. Happy to be here today. Appreciate the opportunity to represent the Department of Development and share a little bit of the programming that we offer. Just personal, real brief background on me, just so you know who's talking at you. Spent over 20 years in our family printing business, less than 15 employees. So small business is my DNA, not necessarily startup, but certainly have lived a lot of the small business struggles that many on the call face. So moved on from there into public service, I'll call it, some elected office, and spent some time in the Ohio legislature. So I have some connectivity that I can bring to the table for folks too. And I guess I'll leave it at that, and we'll go to Ian, then we'll get back to the PowerPoint here.
Great, thanks, Scott, and thanks, Paul, Pat, and Anthony, just for having us here today. My name is Ian Smith. I'm a Senior Project Manager with REDI Cincinnati. That's REDI, stands for the Regional Economic Development Initiative. And effectively, our team tries to understand how to best support businesses that are looking to grow within Greater Cincinnati. That's the 16-county MSA, and also help attract businesses to the market. We range in a variety of industries, and then we're also a network partner with the state of Ohio, Jobs Ohio's economic development team, one of 6 network partners representing the 5 counties in Southwest Ohio. And what that means is for companies that meet certain criteria, based on industry, job growth, and or capital investment, we can help try to advocate for incentive support for those businesses that are growing in Southwest Ohio specifically. And for those that may be growing in Northern Kentucky or Southeast Indiana, we partner with economic development entities in those markets as well. To Scott's point, I've been in economic development for about a decade now, of which I've been with REDI for about 7 of those years. And in between, I was with Kroger's economic development team for just over 3 years, representing economic development efforts nationally for the company. So excited to talk with you all today and also hear from Scott.
Cool. And then just one quick thing on, one more quick thing here. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and then I'll make sure that they're delivered to Scott or Ian at their appropriate times. And do us a favor and have everybody go on mute so that we can kind of avoid any potential reverb, etc. Cool. With that, Scott, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thanks. Let me see if I can share here. Are you seeing it? Kind of a homepage? Good, okay. I'll start off just with the structure here. Department of Development certainly partners with Jobs Ohio to be kind of the government side of the economic development arm for the state. I don't see those entities in a competitive nature. I see that Ohio has a 1-2 punch that's really exciting, and it's a fantastic option that we have Jobs Ohio and development to attack economic development in our state, because most states don't have an entity like Jobs Ohio, and it's just, I think it's fantastic. And I think collaboration and the wins just keep coming and getting better and better. So on the government side, I work in the Department of Development under Director Lydia Mahalik. She is a cabinet member of the DeWine Husted administration. And within that, we have what we call the Business Services Division. My technical title is Office of Technology and Investments Director, which includes two things right now: Ohio Third Frontier and the Ohio Manufacturing Extension Partnership, also known as MEP, which focuses on focus in the tech space, with Third Frontier in the startup space, and Manufacturing Extension Partnership, obviously in manufacturing. I'm going to share some Ohio Third Frontier, Ohio MEP things, but I'm also going to share some business services things, is why I gave you the structure that I don't have intimate knowledge of, but I want folks to be aware of some of the resources that are offered at development. It's on me. It's a little bit embarrassing, but having been in business for, like I said, over 20 years, within 30 minutes of where I now have an office, until I worked here, and this includes 5 years in the legislature, I really had no idea what was offered at development to small businesses. So I'm going to try and quickly give you a menu today that I don't expect anybody to remember, but I would hopefully you can take down my contact information or go through, the folks here at HCDC will certainly have connectivity to me and others to where that, there are some resources here that you may not be aware of that we want to be a connector for. With that, I'll hopefully this plays.
Is there audio?
Oh shit, the audio didn't come through?
Not for me.
I wonder if it needs to be in presentation mode, maybe? I'm not sure.
Well, that's okay. I'll move on. I won't take the time. But anyway, if you saw the visual, you get the idea of, I just think visual helps kind of set the stage for some of the areas that we're involved in. Obviously, Third Frontier is the tech space. So with that, I'll move into 4 programs that we offer within Ohio Third Frontier. The first being the Entrepreneurial Service Provider Program. Everything's acronyms in government. We refer to that as ESP. We have regional partners around the state that offer coaching, sometimes funding, all kinds of different services to help a good idea grow into a thriving Ohio business. Those regional partners, obviously in your neck of the woods is Cincy Tech, and they have some sub-recipients that you're probably familiar with, like HCDC, Centrifuge, Hillman Accelerators, Main Street Ventures, and the UC 1819 Innovation Lab. Jumpstart in Northeast and Northwest Ohio, Rev 1 Ventures in Central Ohio, the Entrepreneur Center in Dayton area, and Tech Growth Ohio at Ohio University, all offer pretty extensive connectivity and services to the entrepreneurs in the tech space. Somewhat in a pipeline order here, capital is certainly a necessary item for businesses to grow. We just this year put out $75 million in pre-seed funding that went to various funds throughout the state. All of our programming is done by application and then evaluated by independent evaluators, and then ultimately approved by the Third Frontier Commission and the actual funding through the controlling board of the legislature. So all that to say, it really doesn't matter if you're a friend of mine or a friend of the governor's, everybody gets a fair shot. The funds that were awarded in the pre-seed program, again, $75 million this last year. They do have to provide match. So this whole program does leverage private capital with tax dollars to help the space that you all are in with much needed capital. In the Cincinnati area, Queen City Angels, I heard mentioned earlier, is one of the funds. Cincinnati Children's Hospital, Lightship Capital are just a few of the examples of folks you might be familiar with. Another program we have, Technology Validation and Startup Fund, commonly referred to as TVSF, is to assist in helping our research institutions, whether it be universities or hospitals, primarily, commercialize ideas that are coming out from their researchers. And there are two phases, the name kind of says it, validation of the technology, and then the second phase is more helping the idea grow into a business. Another area that's certainly critical in our state is workforce. I think we hear more and more about that now. We have another video here, but rather than take the time on that, I'm just going to move right into our diversity and inclusion tech internship. Is targeted at diverse college age students with an interest in the tech space. This is very broadly defined as far as the tech space and the companies. Any company can participate. You do not necessarily have to be a tech startup. Any company with a tech need, which gets clear down to help with a website or digital marketing, really broad interpretation of tech. And it is targeted at diverse college students. However, it is inclusive of anybody that applies from a college student. So we are about, it ranges between 75 and 80% diverse, but it's a really nice financial package for a company. You can have up to 4 of these college interns. $7,500 per intern can be reimbursed, and there's a school year round and then a summer round. So twice per year, you could actually, if you maxed out, which few do, but you could actually get $60,000 in reimbursement for labor from the state, and that is a 2/3 wage reimbursement at a minimum of $15 an hour. So you can pay more than that, and it caps out at $7,500. But so if you go the minimum, hire a college intern for $15 an hour, we're going to reimburse you $10 of it, up to 4 interns twice a year. So I do like to spend some time on that. We've seen some really nice growth in that program, and it's one that nearly everyone can access. And some of these others have to have a little more runway to them and a little more organization. But that internship, I think, is really impactful. My office does not manage tech cred. However, another opportunity for businesses with existing employees are to get them credentialed in a identified area of need through a credentialed provider, $2,000 per employee, up to $30,000 per employer per application period. And there are multiple application periods per year. So if you want to upskill current workforce, huge tool, been wildly successful. Just want to get it on your radar. The Imap program, Individual Micro Credential Assistance Program, is the tech cred is more business centered. The Imap is more individual centered for folks that qualify, low income, some unemployment, to do a short-term certificate, if you will, micro credential, to help them upskill and to have a piece of paper that says they can do X, to give them some credibility with a potential employer. Again, this one hasn't gained as much traction as tech cred, but again, want to get it on your radar and be a connector should you want to access that. And the business services, we do focus a lot on small and medium-sized businesses. I'll jump right to the SBDC centers. Again, not under my watch per se, but a lot of information available through the SBDCs. Again, regionally, statewide, no matter, I know we're talking to a Southwest Ohio group today, but these are available statewide. Also have a minority business development section here within development business services. Provide specific support for minority and disadvantaged businesses. I will not claim to know a whole lot about the bullet points on here, but again, I want to make folks aware that we have a whole team to help those minority-owned businesses grow. Export assistance, another one I had no idea about until I worked on this floor. Ohio has a whole team of folks that have worldwide connectivity to help folks export product. There's another internship program within the export assistance program that is very specific training. Again, I don't have all the details on this, but I wanted to make you aware that these four functions exist, and I can always be a connector should you be interested in exporting product outside the United States. I mentioned manufacturing extension partnership earlier. Primarily aimed at, again, another regional network. TechSolve is the Southwest Ohio partner, aimed at small and medium-sized manufacturers, helping them lean operations, automate, you name it. Manufacturing, Ohio's the third largest manufacturing state in the country, and we really look at it. You know, the common thought out there is Rust Belt and all that. We don't see it that way. We see it as a huge opportunity, as a resurgence for Ohio, combining with our distribution network coming out of Ohio. Manufacturing still is, 3 to 5 jobs are leveraged for every manufacturing job to support the manufacturing facility. So I think you're going to hear a lot about the MEP network and a lot of things. Ohio was recently awarded only one of 6 in the country, a defense manufacturing community designation from the Department of Defense. And most of those were put in by single cities or smaller jurisdictions. To my knowledge, Ohio is the only one that came in as a state, and the MEP network is working with Jobs Ohio, Ohio Manufacturers Association, and many other partners to really make an impact in the defense supply chain world. And I guess I'll leave it at that. But again, the manufacturing extension partnership and the help from that we give to small and medium-sized manufacturers, I think is going to be a piece of the supply chain issues that a lot of our OEMs are facing going forward. And I actually got through this quicker than I thought it would. Usually it's the other way around. So I guess I would open it up to any questions, but please do take down my email address and feel free to reach out at any time. I know I went through those very quickly with not a lot of detail. We have program managers in each of these areas that would probably answer your questions better than I will, but I'll take a crack at it. And if I can't do it, I will have someone get back to you shortly. But that's basically what I had to share.
Does anybody have an initial question?
Hey, Paul, we've had a lot of luck with the Ohio Tech Cred program. It's been a real lift for our younger staff and getting them specific skills that make them obviously more employable for us, but also as they've moved on to other companies, they've done really well. I'm a little curious if you could back up to slide 16 and explain export program to me. We are facing a challenge right now with one of our customers and shipping overseas. And I was wondering if you can explain a little bit more about what those services entail.
To be honest, I'm not as familiar as I could be with the specific services, but I can certainly connect you to the folks that can explain it better. The way it's been presented to me, as they have contacts really throughout the world, and the major focus is on sales chains externally. As far as the image grant and that kind of thing, I don't have the details on that, but I would be happy to connect you with either Jim Lapley or Sarah Ziegler, who run that particular program, and they could give you more than you want.
That's perfect. Yeah, we have a worldwide distribution contract, and we're trying to figure out how to ship into many, many countries at once for a product we're bringing to market here in the second quarter next year. We could use help. So we were going to reach out to Paul and Anthony and say, hey guys, fix this for us. But I think you might be a better reach out for us. Paul and Anthony, tell me if I'm wrong, but we'll come directly to you and set up a meeting for sometime during the fourth quarter for us to chat.
Fantastic. I know they would love to dig in and do what they can. And they have they have relationships with the consulates and the embassies and that whole world too, to, get their foot in the door in areas where we may not have a direct connection. So I think it would be great to get the two of you together and see what might come of that.
Yeah, we might name drop a little bit. I've got a real key meeting with one of these stakeholders this week and then into next week. And this has been an area of concern for us and also for them. So sounds great. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Hey, Paul Mikulski, I just dropped a link to the program details in the chat section. So if you want to take a look at those details and kind of that eligibility requirements and timelines, it's in there in that chat, the chat feature. I just dropped a link in there, so you can take a look
Awesome.
at that as well.
Hey, thanks, Anthony. We'll do
Yeah,
that.
no problem. No problem.
Then, Paul, do you want us to just connect you and Scott together?
Yeah, if you want
Email.
to do the work. Yeah, if you want to do the work for us, that'd be great.
We'll just send you an email, right?
Yeah.
So you have it, and I mean,
Perfect.
to both of you to connect you. So,
Yep.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you, Scott. That was a program I was not aware about, so thank you.
Great.
And the intern program too. I could probably get some dollars back for all the interns I hire as well.
Good. That was
great.
my intent, was just skim the surface and make you aware of these things, and then we could go from there in the future with anybody that has interest.
Very helpful. Thank you. And if anybody hasn't used TechCred, it is very simple and it is very free-flowing funds to train staff. It's been wonderful for us.
Great.
Additional questions?
So not a question, but just kind of a point, I guess, of clarification. So Scott, on the pre-seed or seed plus fund capitalization program, so that is managed or facilitated by kind of the Queen City Angels and Cincy Techs of the world. Is that correct? Like down here in Southwest Ohio?
Correct.
So,
Funds apply directly, and then awards are given to the fund, and then the funds themselves actually make the investments. So we're not directly involved in an investment in a company. We do. They're actually loans to the funds that then, when they have exits, they pay us back. And depending on the time frame, it's either a zero interest loan or at some point they become interest bearing at a minimal rate. So we're just trying to spin the wheel and make the money as evergreen as possible with what the taxpayers approved with Third Frontier.
Yep. Okay. No, thanks. Thank you.
So they go through those providers versus directly to you and OTF.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
But we can, depending on the area of the business or the focus or the trajectory, we can also be a connector and say, hey, you probably should talk to so and so because it's aerospace or healthcare or whatever the case may be.
Gotcha. In cases like that, is it best for us to serve like Anthony, Pat, Stretch, and myself as like the connector to you to then see I mean, because like in some cases we'll just go directly to them, right? But there might be some though, where we're like, hey, you know, Cincy Tech as an example is focused more on, you know, marketing and or digital and then healthcare, right? But there's other spaces that the other, you know, other connections you might know are ones we might have.
I would
right?
always say reach out because I've found that we never know when there might be connectivity that we didn't expect. So I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes in the region by any means, because certainly in Southwest Ohio, you have a great network and that, but there are some crossovers, and especially when you get into the defense space, there's some connectivity that we might be able to provide that others might not. But, you know, I look at all this as planting seeds, and you're never sure where they're going to grow. So it doesn't hurt to plant as many as you can, especially in the startup space, because funding is, you know, difficult to come by. And so we want to be as helpful as we can.
Cool.
Thank you.
Any last questions for Scott before we turn it over to Ian? At least last questions for now.
Let me off easy.
All righty. So, Ian, we'll turn it over to you, and yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks, Scott. Really appreciate it. I knew a few of those programs, but not all of them. So definitely helpful.
Great. I'm going to share my screen really quickly and let me know if you can see the screen itself.
Yep, we
See
got
it.
it.
All right.
Got it.
Wonderful. Great. Well, thanks again. And thanks, Scott, just for going through a lot of those programs. We've definitely referred a lot of businesses to some of the programs that you mentioned. And I'd be remiss for not mentioning just partnerships throughout the region, including the Department of Development, as well as HCDC, just for businesses that are looking to grow within Greater Cincinnati. And that is just a key point, is obviously our role here, at least at Ready Cincinnati, is really trying to help fuel what businesses are doing and really fuel their growth. So whether we're connecting them to workforce partners or business connections or any sort of financial resources, any way that we can help stimulate growth in the region, that's really our primary purpose. And so today, I think Paul mentioned earlier that there's a variety of programs offered at the state level, whether it's the Department of Development or Jobs Ohio, that we can help advocate for with businesses, whether we're making a connection to somebody else that manages a program, or whether we know the ins and outs of said program. Oftentimes businesses may reach out to our team to say, hey, we have tremendous job growth, or we anticipate job growth, and we're debating making an investment either in the Cincinnati market or some other market outside of Ohio. And that's oftentimes what triggers the conversation for incentives, because we obviously want to help encourage a business to grow in our market. And then in the case of Ohio, in Southwest Ohio, versus a market outside of the state. And there's a variety of tools and resources that we use to help make that pitch. But we're focusing on the Jobs Ohio Inclusion Grant today, because once again, if a business historically had a notable number of net new jobs that had a corresponding payroll within a targeted sector that Jobs Ohio focuses on specifically, our team traditionally would see if they're a fit for our particular incentive program. That could include tax credits, grants, or even potential loan support, depending on, once again, the need for that business and what sort of investment they're looking to make. The Jobs Ohio Inclusion Grant Program specifically was introduced really toward the end of last summer, so September of 2020, with the intention of helping more small to medium-sized businesses that may have a certain ownership status if they're owned by an underrepresented population, or if the business itself is located in a distressed zip code. So oftentimes, Jobs Ohio may be a little bit more refined or have heavier guardrails on in terms of who qualifies for incentive support. And with the inclusion grant itself, this is definitely more of a flexible program with the intention of connecting with those small to medium-sized businesses that still have the opportunity to grow, maybe not at the scale of more traditional state support. And so we'll get into some of those parameters here in just a little bit. So first and foremost, you can see here, what is the Jobs Ohio Inclusion Grant? So the Inclusion Grant, it's a reimbursement-based grant program that's intended to provide financial support for businesses that are either located in designated distressed communities. And there's an economic index that we use that basically qualifies that zip code as either being distressed or non-distressed. So if you're curious as to what your zip code qualifies, there actually is a website that we can follow up with that we typically utilize to measure if the businesses would be in a qualifying zip code. The second criteria, this is an either or proposition. If a business is owned by an underrepresented population, that can include minority owned, female owned, veteran owned, disability owned, among other ownership statuses. If that business meets that criteria, they could also qualify for this reimbursement-based grant program. This program had kind of a first phase round late last fall, as I mentioned, and then at the beginning of this fiscal year, so July 1st of 2021, the program is refunded with $8 million of allocation across the entire state. Businesses can capture up to $50,000 in terms of reimbursement-based grant support. And where we're at this point in the year, there's about $6 million left of funding for the remaining fiscal year through June 30th of 2022. So just an FYI there, that's how much funding is available via this program. From the time frame, so our all-time kind of Southwest Ohio results for businesses that were able to take advantage of this program include 35 businesses. Just over $1.54 million in grants were allocated. Rough math, I think that's around, it's $43,000 to $45,000 per company. I think on average, I won't pull out my calculator right now, but it's around that amount. Those companies were able to commit to 210 collective or aggregated net new jobs, which equated to about $11.4 million in committed net new payroll. So those businesses over the next 3 years basically committed to the state they could create those jobs and that corresponding payroll. And you can see there that's September 1st through September 7th. And there's maybe 3 or 4 more companies that just signed agreements. So we're probably at about 38, 39 total companies supported with this program specifically. We do like to showcase the companies that have been able to take advantage of this program beyond the numbers. So you can see in 2020, those were companies that were supported with the program itself. And then year to date, once again, 2021, these are companies that have been able to take advantage of the program as well, in addition to 3 or 4 this past month in October. So going more into the specific details of eligibility requirements, once again, if that business does meet one of those 2 criteria, either the zip code or if the business is owned by an underrepresented population, as well as really being in a Jobs Ohio targeted industry or supporting a Jobs Ohio industry, these are just some specific components that help the team evaluate if they could be a fit for the program. So first and foremost, the company has to have an element of committed net new jobs over a 3-year time frame. I'm going to give a kind of a compare and contrast with traditional Jobs Ohio programming, just so you can see also why this program is a little bit more flexible. For this particular program, a company would have to commit to 10% net new full-time equivalent jobs over 3 years, or 10% net new payroll on top of the previous 12 months of payroll. So hypothetically, if a business had 20 full-time equivalent employees today, they would need to commit to at least 2 net new employees over the next 3 years. With most state programs, that commitment needs to be at least 10 net new full-time equivalent jobs and $650,000 in net new payroll. So you see there's a lot of flexibility there in terms of that jobs commitment for this particular program. Typically, because it's a reimbursement-based program, if the business is investing in fixed asset investments, that is the first item that Jobs Ohio looks to reimburse. But other things that can be reimbursed include any sort of production equipment, any sort of software specific or industry software specific technology that a company is looking to acquire, even down to potentially lease payments if there aren't qualifying costs. It's once again the investment that a company is looking to make is pretty flexible. I highlighted the industry criteria earlier, but still industries that would not qualify for this program are more retail or population-based businesses. So if you think about like a grocery store opening up, or a retailer that may be supporting a specific community, or a restaurant, or even a hotel, those are more population-based industries. You can go to Jobs Ohio's website to see the targeted industry that the state focuses on, but those include manufacturing, financial services, IT, and other population-inducing industries. Next, we see that the company revenues, company must have at least $100,000 in annual revenue, but not to exceed $25 million. That really gets into that small to medium-sized business parameter that we're looking for. And then last, but certainly not least, the business has to have at least 1 year of operations. Just for a compare and contrast perspective, company revenues in the past for other programs that the state may offer, typically that they have to have at least 3 years of operations and at least $3 million in annual revenue. So you can kind of see, once again, it's far more flexible in terms of those thresholds. I'm going to pause really quickly because I think I see a couple of questions in the chat, and I want to make sure that I'm being, the presentation can't be made available. Yes. Other notes, just really quickly. This is a reimbursement-based program. I'm sure I'm sounding like a broken record, but ultimately a business would need to spend eligible dollars related to the program and then get reimbursed once they've spent the award amount that's been provided to them. We typically see, once again, grant award amounts ranging anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000, depending on all the parameters that are evaluated. But the business first must spend those dollars prior to being reimbursed. And it is a one-time reimbursement, meaning that the business can't draw down on a grant as they spend money. They must spend the entire grant award amount before seeking reimbursement. The investment itself must be incurred by the business. We've had a few occasions where a business owner may make an investment or incur an expense on their own rather than the business itself. The business is the entity that must incur that cost in order to be reimbursed. It is a 3-year term, so a business has 3 years to make said investment and create those jobs. So we don't have to execute on an agreement and then the following day the business incurs those costs. There is time to make those related investments in creating those jobs. And then last but certainly not least, this is a one-time grant, primarily meaning it's not intended to coincide with other Jobs Ohio programs. If a business is a fit for a different Jobs Ohio program, we would steer the business in that direction. And if you are curious about those other incentive programs at a later date or anytime, really, I'm happy to talk through what those programs are and those specific eligibility criteria for those incentives. But this is a one-time grant. After the 3 years, if a business continues to grow and they want to seek an additional grant after 3 years, they're more than welcome to go through the process again to understand what's fueling their growth. So the process, you may be wondering, okay, if you're a fit or if you know of another business that could be a fit for this program, what next? So ultimately, we'd love to have a kickoff call with your business or the business that you're referring ready to, with the business itself, with HCDC if you fall within Hamilton County, and then your local economic development partner. We'd help coordinate that call just to ensure that the resources that potentially are out there to help fuel your business's growth are on the line to learn more about your business, what your unique selling proposition is, and how you're growing within the region and even beyond, nationally, internationally, just getting really a sense for what your story is. That's going to help our messaging back once again to advocate for support with our broader team. But that initial deep dive conversation is really important just so we can understand once again what's going to help fuel your growth. It may not even be an incentive. It could be a connection once again to a different partner that may have tools and resources that are going to be a better fit to stimulate your growth. If you are a fit for this particular program, our team would make a recommendation to Jobs Ohio's team. If they agree with that recommendation, an offer letter would be sent to your attention stating what the offer is, and in turn, what commitment you'd be making with Jobs Ohio over that 3-year time frame. And then ultimately, if you like the offer and you'd like to accept it, you would just notify our team, and an agreement would be sent to your attention to review, redline, and sign. Ultimately, the few milestones along the way that I would highlight beyond that kickoff call is our team being able to generate that offer letter for your business. Typically, when we receive and collect certain data points that help kind of fill out your record, it takes, I'd say, anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks to generate an offer. And then once again, if you like that offer and want to move forward with the program, I'd say it takes, there's an online application that you'd fill out, pre-populated with a lot of the information that you give us up front. Once you submit said application, it takes maybe about 3 weeks for an agreement to be sent to your attention to execute and sign. So the overall process is about 6 weeks, give or take a week, but it's a pretty streamlined process. And last but not least, what now? If you're a business, or if you know of a business that fits one of those criteria, once again, if you're in a qualifying zip code, or you're owned by an underrepresented population, and I emphasize this, you meet the industry qualification, and I can follow up with a link to what those industries are that we focus on. You can reach out to my colleague, Sierra Clymer, who's a part of our business development team, or myself. Once again, we've helped guide approximately 40 companies through this program, from the inception of the program through to date. So we're pretty familiar with the process and understanding, once again, what's gonna best help fuel your business's growth. So I'll stop there and just see if there's any questions, but I do appreciate everybody's time today.
All right, so any questions?
So I have a question, and maybe just again a point of clarification. And thanks Ian for the presentation. So we're in a tri-state area, obviously, and so I'm talking with businesses from Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana. Paul's probably talking with businesses from tri-state area. How are those handled? I mean, is there reciprocity with those states, or how does that work?
So the business itself, in terms of incentive support for this particular program, a business would need to be physically located in Southwest Ohio, or really the state of Ohio. If you're interacting with the business in the Dayton region or the Columbus region, if they're interested in this particular program or any Ohio program, the business itself would need to be located in Ohio. Okay. Now, let's say you're working with a business and they are, once again, let's say they're in Erlanger or Newport or Dearborn County, Indiana. Each state does have economic incentive tools or resources that can best help fuel their growth. So we do partner with, let's say in Northern Kentucky, there's an entity called Northern Kentucky Triad. That's a great partner that has resources and great connections to their local partners and state partners to identify resources, once again, that's going to help fuel their growth. So we are very regional focused, but for this particular program and for other state of Ohio programs, the business itself would need to be located in Ohio.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I will just, I'll do a quick plug for some other state incentives. If, let's say your business really is looking to scale pretty dramatically, there are other tools that can help encourage and facilitate kind of that exponential growth. If you meet stronger or higher, let's say, potential job creation commitments. So there are other tools out there. This particular program is just pretty unique. Once again, you see from, I'd say it's a pretty flexible program. Oftentimes states look for but-for clauses, meaning if the state doesn't offer an incentive, could the business grow elsewhere, physically grow elsewhere and hire people in a different state? With this particular program, that but-for clause isn't needed. So a company doesn't have to make the statement, we're going to, if we don't receive this incentive, we want to grow in Ohio, we would grow in Indiana or New York or Tennessee or name the state. So that is another feature of this program that's pretty nice, because a business can just be growing organically, and there may be a reason for their growth, or there still may be a need for some form of support. And that's why this program is also nice, is we don't have to necessarily make the statement that the business would grow elsewhere without it.
Cool. So yeah, any other questions?
Yeah, I
from
had
the-
hi, this is Olivier. I had a question because maybe I didn't understand exactly what you described. I mean, the way I understand what you said is that basically somebody applies, for your program, and then probably after a year or 2 years, they can actually get whatever they already spent in the previous 2 years. Is that what you described? And if so, I mean, what I'm trying to understand is, so what do people get? What kind of help, or how do they leverage you and what they got from your grant within these 2 years? I mean, do they get like some bank? Is it like a collateral, or did I totally misunderstand what you described?
No, that's a great question. So, and I'll, if I don't answer it correctly, then I'll try to describe the program a little bit differently. So if a business is looking to make an investment, so prior to the business making that investment, or they're going through some sort of growth phase. We supported a business in the past year that was looking to make investment, tenant improvements in lease space, and that cost to them was going to be about $75,000. But with that, the reason that they were making that investment is because they were looking to add individuals to their team to help with business development efforts, as well as product design for their actual product that they deliver to customers. So they were making an investment that was also going to result in them adding a few new positions to their team. So when they approached us, the investment hadn't occurred yet, but they were looking for support to help offset some of those costs. So we were able to help advocate for incentive support with this particular program based on the ownership status of that particular business and their location. They actually happen to meet both criteria. We were able to provide an offer of $50,000 in inclusion grant support. And so in exchange for that $50,000 or that $50,000 commitment, the company said that within 3 years, they would hire two new full-time equivalent jobs and make a $75,000 investment. So they got their offer letter, they executed an agreement, and then within about 6 months, the business actually made the investment to their physical space that they said they were going to make. That's an eligible cost. And once they spent up to that $50,000 grant award amount, they communicated with Jobs Ohio's compliance team and said, hey, we've spent our eligible dollars. We would like to seek reimbursement for the grant award that was offered. Jobs Ohio requested, I'm minimizing the steps here, but Jobs Ohio requested kind of their invoice and proof of payment for those expenses. And then once the business documented that, Jobs Ohio, through a direct deposit to their bank account, issued the company $50,000. Once the company got that $50,000, they can do whatever the heck they'd like to do with it. It's their money. They spent those dollars, and they got reimbursed from the state. The 3-year time frame that I talked to earlier is the company has 3 years to accomplish the metrics that it commits to at the beginning. So if a company has, in that scenario, the company had 4 individuals, and so by the end of 2024, they would need to have 6 total individual full-time equivalent employees. So they were going from 4, they committed to adding 2. So by the end of 2024, they'd need to have 6 individuals. The payroll that corresponded with those individuals, they'd need to add that payroll to correspond with the 2. And then the investment, the company committed to spending $75,000. So by the end of 2024, the company would need to commit to those dollar amounts. They can accomplish those things within the first year. They can accomplish those things within the second year or third year. It doesn't matter as long as they accomplish those metric commitments by the end of their 3-year term.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm much clearer now about, the kind of stuff you do. Thanks.
Then remind me, Ian, what occurs if they don't meet all the commitments?
That's a great question. So our team helps guide the business to ensure that commitments they are looking to make are conservative. So if a company believes that they're going to add, let's say, 5 individuals, and they currently have 5 individuals, we would say, well, what can you confidently commit to? So at least we're going into our recommendation with a very firm expectation that you'll meet or exceed that expectation. So that's kind of the way that we guide a company through first at the onset, so nobody's stretching if they don't need to stretch. The second thing is you say, well, that's great. Let's say they provided a conservative estimate, and then 3 years down the road, they didn't hit the conservative estimate. While in any state agreement, any sort of incentive agreement that you get into nationally, there's likely going to be clawback language. In these agreements specifically, and with really any agreement, while that clawback language exists, it's written in such a way that it allows the company and Jobs Ohio to have a conversation well before that commitment want to be made. So maybe there's something that happens to the business itself that was kind of against their control. Maybe there's something that happens within the industry that significantly detrimentally impacted the industry. This past 1.5 years is a really easy example because we just went through a pandemic. Things like that have a negative impact on the business or the industry, Jobs Ohio takes into account to determine, are they going to waive noncompliance or not? I'm not saying it happens all the time, but the agreements are written in such a way not to say, hey, gotcha, you didn't do what you say we're going to do. It's very collaborative in nature. We're trying to help bolster the business's growth, and ultimately, if within that 3-year time frame, if something is going awry, hopefully, whether it's our team, whether it's your team in HCDC, whether it's Jobs Ohio or another entity, hopefully we can identify, hey, how do we help the business grow? These are all intended to help the business grow, not to offer out a carrot just to steal it back. I think that's probably the best guidance that I can give. One last thing that I'd say to compliance in general. Oh, I lost my train of thought. But that's okay. You can edit that out of the recording, hopefully.
Cool. Any final questions before, at least final questions for now? We can always get your questions after the session in front of both Scott and Ian.
Quick question for Scott. I've been looking for third frontier grants. In my case, that would be a phase 1. I keep seeing the message that no applications are open. Do you have regular deadlines, the regular application phases, or is that something that comes and goes?
Really good question. We do have open periods for the next round. Like right now, we're in an evaluation phase. The next round will be likely in early first quarter next year. We try to get those as far out as we can and get them on the website. We are looking, if nothing else, to have a little different name on that for next year. So the timing may be a little bit different, but I would check our website in early January or ping me and I can reach back out and give you some firm dates once we have them set. We're making a few tweaks to that, so I don't want to give you bad information now with any more specific times than that.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Great. And then, so Ian, you said that you would, that's providing the slides is fine. And then Scott, is that fine on your end too?
Yes.
Okay. I think we've got them both. So, cool. Well, are there any final questions? Going once, going twice. I always wanted to be an auctioneer. Last paddles, going 3 times. All right, great. So, hey, Scott, Ian, thanks much for taking some time out of your busy schedules to join, be willing to be recorded and share the presentations with everybody here. We just want to make sure we're connecting our clients and stakeholders to the information and sources that they need to know about to continue to advance their businesses forward. So very much appreciate your time.
Thank you, Paul, and thanks just everybody for listening. If there are any follow-up questions, happy to be a resource. But thank you, and thanks, Scott, also for sharing. It was great to hear more about a lot of the programs that your team offers.
I would echo those sentiments, and again, just emphasize we're a resource. Don't hesitate to reach out, even if it's not our lane. We'll get you to Jobs Ohio or to the right spot in development or wherever the destination may be. We just want to be helpful.
Cool. And one last preview then for our next 2 sessions. Next month, in the middle of December, we're going to have a couple of HCDC clients come in and reflect on their years as founders, the highs and lows, building products, right, raising money, et cetera. So if you want to hear from a couple of your peers, then be sure to tune in. And then and I'll have more details in an email out to the group. But then in January, we've got more sales and marketing focus content. We're going to have Jason Hauer. He's the co-founder and chief growth officer at the Garage Group, a local entrepreneurial innovation company. And Alex Shitty, he's the director of digital marketing at Paycor. They're going to share their tips on how to build strong growth plans that you can definitely leverage for your own businesses. So stay tuned for those, and just continue to tune in for the huddle on the 3rd Wednesday of every month at 12:30.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.